get a little late night Louie going here on the LouieTeeNetwork podcast. I was talking to my guy Ree last night on overtime of a fantastic game, Bills at Titans. And he said, Lou, it felt great to watch football with my team having already taken care of business on Thursday night. This was a great slate of games on Sunday. And I said, or this weekend, he said. And I said, it wasn't that great. It wasn't that great. And he might have said this on Sunday night, not Monday. Either way, I remember saying, it wasn't all that great. I watched 6 games at once. 5. I had 5 games on at 1 o'clock, and 4 of them were blowouts. But you know what? After going back and watching all of the games, Ree was right. Week 6 delivered the goods. Some really good football games, some really fun contests, some really awesome finishes. You know what? Ree was right. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the 214th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. 6 weeks of NFL football in the books. And I must say, I have enjoyed the first 6 weeks thoroughly. Would have enjoyed it even more had my team been on the right side of the win column to this point. But notwithstanding, I've already told you guys this. I'm an NFL fan first. So I enjoy the games whether my team is good or not. And most years my team is not good. So if I were one of those fans that only enjoyed the game when my team was good, I'd never enjoy football. My team is rarely any good. That said, the NFL has really been outstanding. I mean, these primetime games, man, they've delivered week after week after week after week after week. We've talked about that on the overtime series. And week 6 in particular, I thought, was phenomenal. The finishes, the games were just outstanding. And that's where I kind of want to start tonight's show is week 6 and the amount of really good games that we actually got. You know, it felt like blowout city at 1 o'clock, but there were a couple of gems in that 1 o'clock hour. And then the 4 o'clock hour produced, a really good game between the Cowboys and the Patriots. And then from that point forward, the rest of the weekend was just taken over by really strong games. And really, it started with Jacksonville and Miami over in London. And so let's start the show with the Gem Droppin Session, as we always do. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind. Let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T. Let me open you up. Get you thinking a little bit. And I dubbed this week the week of first. Remember when I gave you my picks on Friday, I said this is going to be the week of first. And I wasn't right about that. I wasn't wrong. I wasn't right. All of the first did not take place. How about the Arizona Cardinals? We'll talk more about that when we get to their game. But what about the Arizona Cardinals? My goodness. The disrespect that I've shown them is palpable. And at this point now, I think it's pretty safe to say that the Arizona Cardinals are sick of my shit, and they should be, and I should be at this point now more likely to now say, you know what, I put my foot in my mouth enough times. I'm just going to go ahead and concede that this Cardinals team isn't last year's Cardinals team. They're not soft. They're not mentally fragile. They're capable of going on the road, winning anywhere. They showed us that already by going to L.A. and beating the Rams and beating them soundly. That's not a bad Browns team that they just embarrassed and emasculated in Cleveland. Now, they were super banged up where the Browns, it doesn't matter. Everybody's got injuries. The Cardinals didn't even have their head coach. He was out with COVID, and they destroyed the Cleveland Browns. So they're a team on a mission right now, it seems like. We'll see if that continues throughout the season. But let's get to the good games in week number 6. And I don't think the Thursday night game classifies as a good game. I thought it classified as a good finish. either way, it was a 6-point game. Buccaneers had to have it on the final drive, and they got it, made a couple of key third down conversions to put that game away and win 28-22. And that kind of set the tone for the week. So then we start the Sunday action at 9:30 Sunday morning over in London. NFL's International Series. Jaguars, hosting the Miami Dolphins. And it seems like those two teams spend more time over in London than anyone else. So it was only fitting that those two teams played in this game. Jacksonville, literally, they play a home game over in London almost every year, it seems like. Like they should be the home team of London right now because they play there just about every single year. That said, I said they were going to get their first win of the season against the Dolphins. The Dolphins are struggling. Tua was back, and he actually looked really good. We'll talk more about that when we get to the game. But the Jaguars got their first win. It was a thrilling victory. You know what's funny is their kicker, Matthew Wright, who won the job for the remainder of the season. So he effectively kicked his way onto the Jaguars roster and now has been given the keys to their kicking game for the remainder of the season. Should he stay healthy and remain consistent. They got rid of former Pro Bowl kicker Josh Lambo, who had struggled to start the season, had been dealing with some injuries. They bring on Matthew Wright, and he kicked 2 big field goals. The Jags, get this, were the only team in the league, keep in mind, we were in week number 6, to have not made a field goal all season long. How does that happen 6 weeks into the season? Okay, maybe you didn't kick a field goal in week 1. It's plausible that you might have not kicked a field goal in the first 2 weeks. There's no way you're going 3 straight weeks without kicking and making a field goal. They had attempted field goals. Josh Lambo had attempted 3 and missed all 3 and missed 2 extra points as well. So he had been struggling. The Jaguars had been struggling, and they bring Matthew Wright in. And you know, the funny thing about Matthew Wright is he was in Pittsburgh last year when their kicker Chris Boswell went down, and Boswell's one of the better kickers in football. And they got this Matthew Wright guy. He looks like he's 5'6", about 125 pounds. He looks like he's in the 8th grade. And I remember the game we played the Steelers. Washington played the Steelers last year. They bring this guy in, and his kicks are barely getting through the upright. It's almost like, you know, in high school where you got a school full of guys that can't kick. You go to one of the soccer players and say, hey, you think you can kick field goals for us? And he doesn't have the biggest leg, but he's got enough accuracy, but you don't have a lot of distance. Like, you can't kick a 35-yard field goal because this guy's leg just isn't it. But he can kick extra points, and that's what you really care about for the most part. And so Matthew Wright was barely getting him up there last year. I'm like, this guy's leg stinks. And I remember there was a critical situation in that game. The Steelers were down 3. They had a chance to tie the ball game, and they elected to go for it on 4th down instead of kicking a field goal. Had they had their normal kicker Chris Boswell, they don't think twice. Mike Tomlin sends him out there. He kicks it through the uprights. It's a tied ball game at 17 apiece. But because, Matthew Wright looked like he was struggling, Tomlin's like, nah, I probably shouldn't send him out there for, a 48-yarder or whatever. So I had that stuck in my mind as he goes out there to kick the first of what was 2 50-plus yard field goals. The first being a 54-yarder that started on the outside of the right crossbar, or upright, and then drew back in and barely, when I say barely made it, it barely cleared the bar. Not, Justin Tucker from 68 bouncing off the crossbar barely, but it didn't have any more room to spare, essentially, as it made it over the crossbar. That said, he made it. And I was like, whoa, I didn't think he had that in him. So then when they set up for the 52-yard game winner, I'm like, I don't know about this, man. This might be going to overtime because this guy's leg stinks. And sure enough, he put his leg into that thing. It was right down Broad Street. It just had enough. It was probably good from like 55. Just like the last one was good from 54, barely. This one would have probably been good from 54, 55. But either way, well, what an exhilarating win for the Jaguars to get their first win. Urban Meyer was relieved. The players were so ecstatic. Good for Matthew. I forgot his name already that quick. Good for him. Um, it's always cool when kickers find their way into the league and they have that signature moment that gives them a chance. And he just did that. Let's see what he does with that moving forward. But that really got the action kicked off on Sunday, honestly. Then you go to the 1 o'clock hour, and there weren't many close games. Texans got clobbered by the Colts. The Lions got clobbered by the Bengals. The Chargers got clobbered by the Ravens. Washington got clobbered by the Chiefs. The Giants got destroyed by the Rams. There was a lot of ass whoopings being doled out at the 1 o'clock hour. But then there was a gem tucked away in all of the beatdowns. Was a gem out in Carolina with the Panthers and the Vikings, and we'll get into that game. But that's a big win for the Vikings. It's a debilitating loss for the Panthers. They had just like the week prior against the Eagles, they had every opportunity to win that game. And then the Vikings, for what seems like the 6th straight week to start the season off, had every opportunity to win, then every opportunity to lose, and then finally found a way to get it done. They're probably the most insane 3-3 team right now at this 7-week mark. Looking at their season, they could easily be 6-0. They could also easily be 0-6. That's not saying much. That's probably 2/3 of the league that could look at their record and say, hey, 1 or 2 plays here or there. We're 4-2 right now. We could easily be 2-4 or 1-5. But or 5-1 or 6-0. But they're 4-2 or they're 3-3. The Vikings, though, they're Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. And I told you guys after last night's game with the Titans, there are 2 teams that I believe wholeheartedly are capable of beating anybody in this league and losing to any team in this league as well. And it's the Minnesota Vikings and the Tennessee Titans. You saw a little bit of that from the Titans last night, and you see it every week with the Minnesota Vikings. They play down to their level of competition. They play up to their level of competition. You don't know what Vikings team is going to show up each week, but they're talented. They got some stuff. I don't love their depth, as I mentioned, at certain positions, but if they stay healthy, they've got a chance because Kirk Cousins was phenomenal yesterday, and they got talented wide receivers. And I think, the addition of Herndon to the tight end position helps them in the absence of Herb Smith. And, now getting a guy like Osgood to step up, they're really, or Osborne, excuse me, they're a dangerous team. They can be a dangerous team. And that was a big win for them. Then you go to the 4 o'clock hour. The Dallas-New England game was epic. I enjoyed that one thoroughly. Tit for tat, back and forth, ups, downs, roller coasters all around. It had everything in that football game. And the finish was fantastic. And the Cowboys get it done similar to the way that the Vikings got it done in overtime with a touchdown. Then you get to Sunday night. That was a brutal, physical football game between 2 teams that, frankly, had to have it. You want to get back to 3-3 on the season, and after slow starts by both teams, you needed to get it done. And if you're the Steelers, you couldn't afford to lose at home to Geno Smith and the Seattle Seahawks. You just couldn't. And they found a way to get it done in overtime with a crazy finish in regulation. And then TJ Watt takes over the game in overtime. And then finally, Monday night caps off the week with an exclamation point, which I thought was the best game of the week. It was Titans and Bills, 34-31. Comes down to a 4th and 1 stop on a quarterback sneak, inside the 5-yard line by the Titans to preserve the victory. That game had some of everything. 7 lead changes, back and forth. One team scores, takes the lead. The other team responds, takes the lead back. The other team scores to take the lead back and wrestle back control of the game. Uncle Mo didn't know what to do. His head was spinning. 1 minute he's walking across the field. Before he could even get to the other side and sit down, he's walking back across to the other sideline. It was a game that was just phenomenal to watch. And I thought it was a great football game, well played on both sides, and a great period or exclamation point to what I thought was a really good week 6 of football. So with that said, let's get to our next segment, which is going to take us around the National Football League. Get your skates on. We're going to go slate skating week 6 in the National Football League. And let's start in London with the Jaguars getting their first win of the season, 23-20 over the Miami Dolphins. I thought this was a really well-played game by the quarterbacks in particular. It was a sloppy game. You see why Jacksonville is 1-5 right now. It easily could have been 0-6. They keep shooting themselves in the foot with penalties, unforced errors, mistakes. They just can't seem to get out of their own way. But ultimately, it was the Dolphins that made some critical errors and mistakes. I thought that their head coach was a bit too passive in his approach. He, to me, felt like he was playing not to lose instead of playing to win. You know, he was playing this game as if he were playing against the, Bills or the Jets or the Bills or the Chiefs or someone where he's like, hey, I got to be a little cautious. We're in this game. Don't want to do anything stupid. And you got to understand, you're 1-4, dude. You're 1-4. Your team's struggling. You're playing against a winless 0-5 Jacksonville Jaguars team. Let it all hang out, man. Like, you can't be in here trying to, field goal your way to a victory. And thought that there were a couple of times 4th and short, and he's scared to go for it. I'm like, dude, if you can't get a yard, if you can't get 2 yards against Jacksonville here, then you don't deserve to win. And they come out and they try to draw them all sides and then end up punting. And I just thought that there were chances for them to go and seize this game, seize control, win this game. They jumped on Jacksonville early in this game. This was a 10-3 ball game. They were up early and had control, but credit Jacksonville. I thought Marvin Jones was spectacular in this game. Thought he was outstanding, made some big catches, including that touchdown catch in the first half to really give Jacksonville some life heading into the halftime break. He made some critical, catches on 3rd downs. I think he even had a 4th down catch that was outstanding. Laviska Shenault stepped up, even though he had a couple of drops in the game. This was a really good game by both quarterbacks, though. Trevor Lawrence was outstanding. I thought he was fantastic on that final drive. He takes the sack, and in earlier games this season, he might have done something dumb there. He might have tried to force it under duress, throw it up for grabs, get it picked off. They lose this game. Instead, he takes the sack. He doesn't panic. It's 3rd and forever. It's like 3rd and 25. He doesn't try to force it down the field. He takes the underneath route. The Dolphins were giving them about a good, 18 yards or so. Hey, you can have whatever you want. So he takes the check down, knowing that they have timeouts in their back pocket. So takes the check down with about 25 seconds left. Laviska Shenault gets as much as he can, about 18 on the play. They're still about 7 yards short of the first down. It's 4th and 7. They call timeout with about 11 seconds left. No. They call timeout with about 7 seconds. I thought Jacksonville actually didn't really know what the hell they wanted to do in that situation, because when that play was over, there was roughly about 13, maybe 14 seconds left. And they let the clock bleed all the way down to about 7, maybe even 5. I think it was 5 seconds before they realized, you know what? We first of all, our kicker already showed us he can't make a 58-yard field goal, which is what it would have been. I think it would have been 59, excuse me. The kicker already had showed he can't make a 59-yard field goal. Can't send him out there for that. You don't want to throw a Hail Mary. So let's just try to, let's see. The Dolphins are going to play soft. They're going to give us everything we could ask for because they're probably thinking we're going to throw a Hail Mary. So let's just take a quick hitter over the middle, get down, and we'll call our last time out with 1 second left. And that's what they did. Perfectly executed. On 4th and 7, they get 7.5. Laviska Shenault goes down. They call timeout with 1 second left and send Matthew Wright onto the field for the game-winning 52-yard field goal. Perfect execution, and I didn't think he was going to make it. I'm not going to lie. And I had Jacksonville, and I'm sitting there hoping that this guy finds a way to split the uprights, and he does. And I'm excited. Like, it's my team because I know that's a big win for me. And it's a big win for Herb. It's a big win for Trevor Lawrence. But, on the losing side of this, Tua, I thought was fantastic. 33 of 47, 329, 2 touchdowns. His one interception, it was a bad one. It was a bad one. I mean, he tried to get it over a defender in the honey hole of cover 2, but the corner did a great job of sagging underneath, but he was standing there the whole time. It's almost as if Tua didn't see him. or something. I don't know, but I thought Tua really handled himself under duress. The Jags came with pressure a ton. I thought he hung in there, made some excellent throws under pressure. Thought he got out of there, used his legs when he needed to. I thought I saw Tua come out there and with cracked ribs play a fearless brand of football that was impressive. So Gesicki was outstanding in this game. I still struggle with the fact that Jalen Waddle can't catch a pass more than 5 yards down the field. It's getting frustrating now. Like every game he's got 10 catches, but it's only for 62 yards. Like he can do more than just catch a wide receiver screen or a slant or a speed out. He can do more than that, you know. He can actually get vertical. It's okay to throw him the football down the field. So I think they're still struggling with that. For all the speed that the Dolphins had coming into the season, they don't utilize it at all. They really don't have a lot of explosive plays. And when they do have explosive plays, it's usually to their tight ends. So they've got a lot to work on. Excuse me, I still think they're missing a dynamic running back offensively. Man, do they stink at the running back position. But anyway, they're struggling. Everything that went right for them last year that had them winning, 10 games is going wrong for them this year. And Flores, to me, doesn't seem like the guy that I saw last year. Seems a lot more conservative, a lot more tentative. Last year, he was just rolling the dice like, all right, fellas, let's go out here, play some defense. And I think that's more of his nature, is to play defense, strong special teams, be a little conservative, because he's a defensive-minded guy. And let's see if we can't just, eliminate the mistakes, which they make a ton of mistakes too, and see if we can't win the game that way. But they're not having the same luck they had a season ago. Both teams are now 1-5. Congratulations to Urban Meyer for his first win. Boy, did he need that. Like we need oxygen to breathe. He needed that win in Jacksonville, and he got it. Green Bay at Chicago. This game, it took a while for the Packers to wake the hell up. And they were sleepwalking for a while there. But once they got ahead, they seized control of this game. And I knew eventually that's what would happen. But boy, it took a while. We're into the second quarter I'd say about halfway through the second quarter, and it's 7-0 Bears. And I'm like, what the hell is going on right now? But you got to credit that Chicago Bears defense. They're good on defense, which they usually are. But unfortunately, their offense isn't very good. And most weeks, that's what's going to end up proving itself out, is that they're just not good offensively enough to win a ton of games this season. But that said, Aaron Rodgers and the offense finally came alive. They were able to move the football, score a couple of points. They didn't need much. They weren't going to need a ton against this Bears offense. And Aaron Rodgers put the exclamation point with the touchdown. And I'd been waiting to see the championship belt. I hadn't seen it in a while. He had a rushing touchdown earlier this year, and he didn't pull out the championship belt. And I'm like, is that dead? Like, that was one of my favorite things in the league, was the championship belt. So he scores the touchdown right at the end. He's going to get in. The defender knows he's getting in, but the defender still pushes him anyway. And I think Rodgers got pissed off by that, because when he got pushed down, he rolls over, he ends up on his knees, and he pulls out the championship strap. And I'm like, yeah, hell yeah. And then he goes, I still own you, to the Bears fans. And I'm like, okay, that's right. I still own you. All right. Rodgers getting fired up. So I think that was like a culmination of the week. If you recall, this week leading up to the game, they had asked him to name, all the Bears starting quarterbacks since he had been in Green Bay, and he couldn't name that many. So that was a running joke. And then obviously they asked him, would he ever consider playing in Chicago? And he went through this whole soliloquy about how Chicago's a great sports town, and he grew up a Bulls fan. And, he grew up at one of the few sports channels that he got on television, which everybody can attest to, which is how I became a Bulls fan, was WGN. I don't know why the hell we got WGN, but we did. That's how I became a Braves fan. That's how I became a Bulls fan growing up, was because I got TBS. Well, TBS was the Braves channel, so I got to watch the Braves all the time. WGN was the only channel where you got the same team over and over again. Same thing with Notre Dame Irish, Notre Dame Fighting Irish football. That was the only college football team that was on every week on NBC. So, same thing with Duke basketball. I grew up when Duke basketball was at its peak powers. They were on every week. So that's how I became a Duke Blue Devils fan. It's like, it's not hard. I didn't live somewhere where there were local teams, so I latched on to the thing that I saw the most. And he said that's how he became a Chicago Bulls fan growing up. But he said all of that, and he talked about how great the fans in Chicago are, and how he was walking to a restaurant one night, and he was all bundled up, and a couple still saw him and knew who he was, and they walked to the restaurant together, and it was a great conversation. And then he got to the end, and he's like, no, I would never play for the Chicago Bears. Not happening. So, there's something going on there, but at the end of the day, Rodgers did enough. Bears are now 3-3 on the season. Packers are 5-1. Again, I'm not overly impressed with the Packers, but they just continue to do enough to win. And when you got Aaron Rodgers, that's not hard to do. You know who was the most impressive player in this game? Was Khalil Herbert, the rookie running back for the Chicago Bears. I mean, this is a guy that is getting an opportunity because David Montgomery had the injury. And Khalil Herbert is like a man possessed when he gets the football. He runs hard. He's physical, got a little bit of speed, has some quickness. This first year back out of Virginia Tech, man, is showing some things. And super impressed with him in this game. And I continue to be super impressed with him every week that he gets opportunities. I feel like he takes advantage of those opportunities. Justin Fields was okay. He wasn't great. He wasn't terrible either. He's continuing to progress and get better. But still a ways to go for him. Packers seize control of that division. They're now 2 games clear of everyone else in that NFC North. And I think they're the best team in that division. And I think, as the season progresses, they'll continue to widen that gap. And I wouldn't be shocked if they wrap that thing up by week, 13 or 14, early on as this thing continues to move along. Cincinnati Bengals at Detroit Lions. This was one of my upset picks. I thought the Lions could get their first win of the season. They were awful in this game. And you got to credit Cincinnati. I mean, they jumped on these boys early and often. They didn't let them breathe in this football game. It started early. On the very first possession, Joe Burrow hits Chris Evans for a touchdown pass. And from that point forward, the floodgates just opened up. And they never looked back. And before you know it, you looked up. And again, it's not like they were destroying the Lions. I had hope. Even at halftime, Lions were down like 10-0. I still had hope, that they would find a way to, get something done. But early in the third quarter, they scored a touchdown to go up 17. I said, okay, no, this isn't going to be Detroit's day. I just let that one go. Okay, because you got to know when to say when. Unlike some of these quarterbacks that think they can make a play on every play, even when there's nothing there, like Mahomes on Sunday throwing that ridiculous interception. I know when to say when. And at 17-0, I said, okay, they're not going to be competitive in this game. But, I mean, this thing got to 27-0. I mean, this was a total ass thrashing on the part of the Cincinnati Bengals. And I'm going to tell you a guy that really impressed me in this game. Joe Mixon looked back. He looked healthy. Last week he came back, he played. I thought he looked like he was still favoring, the ankle. I saw no ill effects of the ankle injury, no wear or tear. He was out there making moves, making plays. He was the best player on the field for the Cincinnati Bengals. He probably was the best player on the field for both teams. Almost 100 yards rushing, chipped in another 50, 60 on the, as a receiver. He's getting back to that fantasy football status. Still not the touchdowns you would like to see from Mixon, but I thought if he gets back to where he needs to be, this is going to make this Cincinnati Bengals team that much more dangerous. They're 4-2, man, and I'm just saying, I don't know if they're going to go away. I told you I love the moves they made defensively to fortify that defense. Chidobe Awuzie has been a breath of fresh air at the cornerback position. Like, he's the anti Trey Waynes, who they signed to this massive contract, who hasn't played, been injured, and hasn't really done much of anything. He's come in and he's given them everything that they were looking for out of Trey Waynes. Trey Hendrickson has been a man beast on that defensive line. Larry Ogunjobi has also contributed. I just think everything that they've done, they've pressed all of the right buttons. Jamar Chase continues to be a standout. Another week, another long 40-yard completion for him. This team is complete. They're a complete team. They have a really good field goal kicker. I don't know how far they're going to go this year, if they'll even make the postseason, but I don't think they're going away. I don't think this is one of those, oh, that was cute, they were good early in the season, but they fall off. I think Cincinnati's going to be around. Meanwhile, Detroit 0-6 now. They've had opportunities to, win games. They haven't been able to do it. They stink, man. This was horrible. This was terrible. If you're a Lions fan, the last couple of weeks had you encouraged. Hell, even going back to the Chicago game. Chicago game, Baltimore game, Vikings game. Those 3 games had you encouraged that, man, we're getting close. We're getting dangerously close to beating somebody. And I thought this was the week. And then you regress this way, 34-11, down 27-0 at one point. Yikes. I don't know when they get their first win. They're not going winless. They're not that bad. But, man, that one stunk. They're now 0-6 on the season. Houston and Indianapolis. This one went exactly the way that I thought it would go. The Colts were so close to really getting their season back on track last week with a big win. Had they beaten the Ravens last week, they'd be back to 500 right now. But instead, they're 2-4 after the 31-3 thrashing of the Texans. We said this before the season started. We did not know Tyrod Taylor was going to get hurt, but yes, we did. So I'm not surprised that they're in the predicament that they're in. They stink. I mean, they're getting shut out or they're scoring like minimal points. Last week was an aberration against New England. They scored 22, had a chance to win that game, blew it. But the week before they get shut out by Buffalo, this week they only put up a measly 3 points. In that game against Carolina, I think they scored 9 points, I think. And at one point they were getting shut out in that game. Right around halftime, I think they scored their first touchdown. They were lousy in that game offensively. They stink on offense right now, do the Texans. Davis Mills, bless his heart, he's fighting his ass off, but another 2 interceptions. And some of these are just brutal, back-breaking interceptions where you're like, dude, what are you looking at? Where are you going with the football? But again, you're talking about a guy that literally had like 11 career starts in college in like 4 years. So he's a work in progress. He it's not just he hasn't had experience in the NFL. He hasn't had a ton of experience as a starting caliber quarterback, period. So it's definitely a growing experience for him, but a lot of growing pains indeed. It's just not enough there with the Texans. And I don't think they're well coached either. That doesn't help. Carson Wentz didn't have to do much. Only 20 passing attempts. I mean, hell, I think he was on the sidelines chumming it up. And this is, if you're a fan of the team that's blowing out another team, there's nothing better than to see your quarterback on the sidelines with 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter with a ball cap on, maybe an earpiece in hearing the play calls. But, who gives a shit about the play calls when you're up by, 4 touchdowns? But you may have the earpiece in, but you just see him over there elbowing a guy and laughing. Yeah, did you see it? Yeah. There's nothing better than that, because that means we've dug in somebody's ass today, and that's what the Colts essentially did to the Texans. This one really was never in doubt. Even at halftime, it's a 10-3 game. I'm like, I'm still not impressed with the Texans and what they've done. Colts really run it up in the third quarter. Run the check up. Next thing you know, it's 24-3, and this thing was all said and done. And they had some drives where they could have been in this game. Davis Mills had a bad interception he threw to Darius Leonard, and then there was another catch over the middle of the field that turned out to be a fumble that got scooped up by Darius Leonard. Just too many mistakes, too many turnovers, and they're not a good enough team to overcome those mistakes. Colts get the win. It was good to see T.Y. Hilton back. Eugene was on the field making plays. Let's see how long this lasts for. Their offense is so much more dynamic when he's in the lineup. And, oh, my God, Paris Campbell deep sighting. I almost fainted when I saw him catch that deep ball in this football game, because he's supposed to be able to provide that for them. But he's got to stay healthy in order to do that. He was able to do that in the game. And, man, Jonathan Taylor. What more can I say? This guy's a beast. And I said it. Remember I said he's a first-round back. If there's one thing that I've gotten really I think I've gotten right over the last couple of years that people have been, teams have been wrong on are these running backs. Once upon a time, I said Alvin Kamara is a first-round back, and I think the Saints took him in the third round, traded up to get him in the third, if not the third, the late second. I said Jonathan Taylor is the best back in that draft class, the best in that draft class in 2020, and he ended up being the second or third back taken, and he got taken in the second round, and I said some teams made a mistake. Josh Jacobs was the first back taken. I think Josh Jacobs was the 19 draft, not the 20. Either way, some teams missed on Jonathan Taylor. 14 carries, 145 yards, and a couple of scores. He picked right up where he left off at last week against the Ravens. He was phenomenal, and boy, can he run. He looks even faster than he did at Wisconsin. And yeah, he was fast at Wisconsin. But you know what I said? It's the Big Ten. It's those corn-fed, lumberjack, Jack and the Beanstalk, Big Ten safeties and corners and linebackers. It's Michigan State. It's Michigan. It's Minnesota. I don't know if he's really that fast. Then he blazed that 4.37. At the combine, or 4.39, whatever the hell it was. That's legitimate speed. He can go. He was outstanding in this game as well. Big win for them. I think they're going to turn their season around. Are the Indianapolis Colts. They're now 2-4. Rams, Giants. This was a one-sided beatdown. I mean, who didn't see this coming? That's why I made this my survivor pick of the week. The Giants were decimated by injuries. No Saquon Barkley, and they already had receivers out. Then Kadarius Toney, who was playing really well the last couple of weeks, he got hurt in the first quarter. They were pretty much back to where they were last year offensively without Barkley. He's the guy that makes that offense viable and makes them a threatening offense, because without him, now you're just like, okay, well, now Daniel Jones has to beat us. Good luck with that. Like, no one's afraid of that. And so the Rams started slow in this game. It was 3-0 after the first quarter. They explode for 28 second quarter points. 28. My goodness. They got some help from the Giants, man. They were awful in this game. Daniel Jones, 3 interceptions, and they were bad, man. There were some bad interceptions. He should have thrown like 5. Taylor Rapp had 2 interceptions. He could have had 6 in this game by himself. Daniel Jones was awful. The Giants were awful. Their defense was awful. It was a mess. It was a cluster F. And honestly, if the Rams wanted 60 in this game, they could have gotten it. They literally called the dogs off in the second half. And this was a beatdown. You never like to see this in your own building. But again, like I said, there's nothing wrong with an old-fashioned, passionate ass whooping and getting your shoes, coat, and hat taken in obscurity at 1 p.m. on a Sunday when everybody else is watching their own team play. The worst ass whoopings come when you're the only game in town and all eyes are on you. That's the embarrassing. This is only embarrassing to Giants fans because they had to, endure this and watch this. But man, this one was ugly. But if you're the Rams, this is what you're supposed to do to teams like the Giants. You want respect? This is what you do. You trample on the little sisters of the poor and make them understand that they don't have a chance. That's what they did. They took the Giants' heart in that second quarter, never looked back. And that's what you expect the upper echelon teams in the league to do. You know how I say that, it's a fine line. There's a clear line, not a fine line, a clear line in between the haves and the have-nots. The biggest difference is that the haves, when they're supposed to beat someone, they really beat someone. It's not like, oh, man, they barely escaped. Like, that's why Dallas and their 5-1 start is cool. And it's impressive coming from where they were last year. But a lot of that, too, was, they didn't have Dak, and the defense was terrible, and the defense is better this year. But Dallas still almost lost to New England. And I'm not saying New England is terrible, but New England, I don't look at New England and say, oh my God, the New England Patriots. Like, the New England Patriots don't strike fear in anybody's heart. But I think if the Rams played New England, they'd destroy them. That's just my personal opinion. I could be wrong, and they could be fighting for their lives, just like Tampa was. But when you're playing a team that you're supposed to destroy, and the Cowboys destroyed the same Giants team, this is what you do to them. And the Rams did that. So that was impressive. They're 5-1 on the season. The Giants are 1-5. And without Barkley, they look like one of the worst teams in football. And this is why Washington's schedule sucks. Because the Giants in week 7 would be just what the doctor ordered. The Eagles in week 7 would be just what the doctor ordered. Instead, we don't get those teams until later in the season when it may not matter, you know. But anyway, I digress. Chiefs at Washington. Speaking of Washington, yikes! This one, as a Washington fan, this one, these are the ones that are hard to stomach because you going into the game, I thought we had zero chance, and to be up at halftime, 13-10, feeling like you somewhat dominated the first half, even though 2 of the turnovers we forced 3 of them. Keep in mind, through the first 4 weeks of the season, this was a Washington team that had only generated 2 turnovers. That's it. And then in the last 2 weeks, they've exploded for 5 turnovers forced. Yet, in both of those games, they had nothing really to show for those turnovers. Nothing. It's embarrassing. And it's crazy because the first 4 weeks, when they weren't generating turnovers, the offense was moving the football at will and scoring points. Now that we're actually generating turnovers and getting better field position, they got nothing for us. It's crazy. Anyway, you're up 13-10. You're feeling good. You've generated 3 turnovers, 2 interceptions of Mahomes. You're hanging tough. You're thinking at some point this Chiefs defense that stinks just like ours is going to start to have a letdown, and maybe we'll be able to ratchet it up in the second half. Nope, never happened. Offense stayed asleep, didn't score a single point in the second half. Meanwhile, the Chiefs exploded for 21 unanswered in the second half of this game and win it going away 31-13. Mahomes threw for damn near 400 yards in this football game, 397 to be exact. Tyreek Hill was solid. Kelsey was solid. Nobody killed us, but it was a little bit of, wide receiver skill position du jour. 8 for Kelsey, 7 for Hill, 5 for, Mecole Hardman, 4 for Demarcus Robinson, 3 for, Fortson, the other tight end, and everybody got involved. And then Mahomes sprinkled in a little bit of his legs, and that was all she wrote. Washington is just so disappointing defensively right now, but the offense, that was what was giving us a chance the first 4 weeks. They've gone completely to sleep the last 2 weeks, and that's why Washington now sits at 2-4 in the season. And it was a big game for both teams. Both teams came into this game at 2-3, trying to get back to 500. This was a golden opportunity for Washington to do it, and they just simply failed to show up in the second half. Chiefs get back to 500 at 3-3, and despite the defensive performance in this game, which was abnormal for the Chiefs, still think they've got some issues defensively. And they didn't have Chris Jones, and they still stifled and stymied Washington's offense to the tune of just 13 points. Big win for the Chiefs. They're now back to 500 on the season. Vikings at Panthers. Wow, what a game. There's so much to unpack here with this football game. Let me take a couple of super chats real quick. Don't want to miss these real quick. Emperor Meech, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Emperor Meech writes, remember how I said DK was dumb? Him going back and forth with Shannon Sharp on Twitter was dumb. Couldn't take criticism for that play and tried a Hall of Famer. I wasn't paying attention to the back and forth. I heard about it. But he's not alone in that. Players are sensitive in every single sport. We know Kevin Durant had a burner account to handle criticism of him and try to do it anonymously with a burner account. Players are sensitive. They have egos. Nobody wants to hear criticism of them from, even if the guy that's criticizing them is a Hall of Famer. We see in the NBA all the time, Charles Barkley criticizes these players, and they throw temper tantrums, and they go off on socials. We see it all the time in the NFL. Guys get criticized, and they go after whoever's criticizing them. It's always going to be that way. Players feel like it's a brotherhood. It's one thing if the guy criticizing them is Stephen A. Smith. It's Stephen A. Smith. He never played the game. I don't give a shit. It's another thing when the guy criticizing you is a former player who used to be a part of the fraternity, now a member of the media, so he's got a different agenda. Or even more so when it's a Hall of Fame player like Shannon Sharpe. That gets under your skin. So players are sensitive, man. I'm not mad at him for, clapping back. It's unnecessary. What does it prove? It doesn't do any good. You're not going to win. But at the end of the day, that's what these young boys do. So, and that was a dumb play by DK Metcalf. He can sit there and try to defend it all he wants. He almost cost his team a chance at winning the football game. And there was no reason for him to not go out of bounds there. None. Like, what were you thinking? But maybe he wasn't. The bottom line is he's not alone. That's not an uncommon response by the players today. John Livingston, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy JL Smooth writes, "What up, Lou? Heartbreaker for us because Josh slipped. On to the next. I'm sure you've talked about it, but F Jackson Mahomes, RIP 21. I talked about it on the Washington show. I don't want to give him too much attention because he's thirsty, okay? He's definitely a clout chaser. And that's, again, much like I just said with DK Metcalf, Jackson Mahomes is a great representation of the youth of America. They're all thirsty. They're all clout chasers. They're all looking for some shine on the gram, or they're all looking for some shine and some love on Snapchat or now TikTok. So it's not uncommon. These young kids will do anything for the clout. Do anything for the clout. And he's not alone in that. But was it disappointing? Sure, but I don't expect any less or any different out of him because he's shown his true character on social media before this. Everyone knows he's an ass. And it just so happens that his brother is famous, or he'd just be a nobody. But I digress. I talked about that on the show. If you're interested in my opinion, go watch that. And yes, that was a heartbreaker. I'm pretty sure that's part of the reason you didn't show up last night. I was looking forward to hearing from you. But that stings. It really does. And I thought you were going to lose. I had already picked you guys to lose that game. But to lose it in that manner, it's tough because I thought you played well enough to win. And you've seen the breakdown, I would assume. If not, I broke the game down yesterday and pretty much talked about how you got off to a slow start. Even though you moved the football, you came away with field goals. That's where you lost the game, not at the end with the slip. That was a microcosm of the night for you in terms of having opportunities and missing opportunities. You guys were up at halftime, and I thought what your head coach, Sean McDermott, said was profound, and it was spot on. He said, I don't care that we're winning. I'm upset because there's too many missed opportunities and too many points we left on the field in the first half. He was right, and that's why you lost the football game. So let's get back to the breakdown, and we left off with Minnesota at Carolina. What a football game this was. 34-28, the Vikings win it in overtime. They win the toss, and they never allow Carolina to see the football. But this thing should have never gotten to overtime in the first place. But let's start with Kirk Cousins. He's the Rodney Dangerfield of the NFL. Man can't get no respect. Nobody ever wants to give Kirk any love when he's playing well, but let him throw a pick in a late game situation. Oh, he's ass. Typical Kirk Cousins. Can't win it in the clutch. But when he comes up big and he delivers for his team, everybody ignores it and acts like it didn't happen. Kirk Cousins was 33 of 48 for 373 and 3 touchdowns and made every single throw he had to make in this game when his team needed him to make it. Dalvin Cook back for the first time in about 3 weeks. 29 carries, 140 yards, and a touchdown. When he's healthy, man, there aren't many better in the game. Period. He's just got to stay healthy, man. It's just hard for him to stay healthy, but when he is, Thielen was outstanding. So was Justin Jefferson. They're one of the better duos in the league at the receiver position, but I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. Sam Darnold's numbers in this game are very misleading now. Darnold was trash. Don't get me wrong. But he was 17 of 41 for 207, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But in his defense, there was literally about 7 drops by his receivers in this game. I'm not bullshitting you. And 7 might be a little low. Okay, they did not help Sam Darnold out at all in this football game. And yet, with the game on the line, backed up in your own end zone, 4th and forever, Sam Darnold makes the best throw he made all game to tight end Ian Thomas over the middle of the football field. First of all, how did we get here? This was a game that I thought could go anyway. I had the Panthers in this game, so I was hoping that the Panthers could somehow find a way to win this game. And at halftime, the Vikings are up 12-10. And I'm thinking they got them right where they want them. Low scoring game. They don't want to get into a shootout with Minnesota. That's not their comfort zone. They want this thing to be played in somewhere in the low 20s, maybe even high teens. Low to mid 20s, I think they could get it done. And they scored a touchdown to take the lead to the Panthers in the third quarter, 17-12. And at that point, I was like, all right, they got a chance to seize control of this game. And literally, before you could blink, the Vikings are back in the end zone. And when you block a kick, a punt, and you score a touchdown, it's such a momentous play in a game. It changes everything. They block this kick, do the Panthers, scoop it and score it. They're up 17-12, and I'm thinking now the crowd's going wild, they're raucous. You get a stop here, who knows? Get a touchdown, it's 24-12, you got them right where you want them, it's over. Instead, the Vikings drive it right down the field, get in the end zone, score a touchdown, go for 2, don't get it, but that was all they needed to do, was to quiet the crowd and settle things down, wrestle that momentum back. They did that, and from that point forward, they looked like the better team. They looked like the aggressive team. They looked like a team that was going to run away and win. They scored that touchdown. They scored the next touchdown in the game, and they're up 25-17. They kick a field goal. They're up 28-17, and I thought it was over. You know, I had thoughts with all the blowouts going on. I had thoughts of turning this game on and getting rid of one of the games that I had been watching. Because like I said, I was watching 5 games. 4 of them were blowouts. So I was thinking about getting rid of one of the 4 blowouts I was watching. And then I saw the Vikings up, Vikings up 11, 28-17. I'm like, they're about to run away with that one. They're good. I don't need to watch that one either. So I'm getting ready for overtime. And I see that the score is 28-20, but I'm not thinking the Panthers are going to go down and score a touchdown, get the 2-point conversion, and send it to OT. I just chalked it up to a loss. I lost that game. Just like I lost the Lions game, I lost that game. It is what it is. Shit happens. So I'm watching the game, and Darnold is backed up. The Vikings can't put him away. And their head coach, Mike Zimmer, is super conservative. So, they never really ever keep their foot on the gas pedal the way that they should. But they had opportunities, and they didn't take advantage of them. But I think he was thinking in his mind, like, there's no way our defense, the way they've been playing today, they're going to allow Sam Darnold to go down the field and get this ball into the end zone. That's exactly what happened, but you got to give Sam Darnold, for as bad of a game as he was having with all the drops, and he was misfiring left and right, he was under duress, he wasn't comfortable in the pocket, for all that had transpired in the game. It's 4th and forever. He drops back 5 yards deep into his end zone and throws a frozen rope to Ian Thomas. It was a beautifully thrown football right where it had to be, over the linebacker before the safety could get over. Like, it's a gorgeous throw. Ballsy throw. And I'm like, okay, Sam. Still don't think you scoring a touchdown in the 2-point conversion to tie this shit up, but okay, Sam. I see you battling through some adversity. And then on third down, he throws it to his star receiver, DJ Moore. He drops it. Go figure. DJ Moore has already dropped 3 passes. Robbie Anderson has already dropped 4 passes. I mean, when guys start dropping passes, it becomes contagious. And that's what happened. You get 1 drop, then you get 2 drop. Now another guy's dropping it. Then another guy sees the other 2 guys dropping it, and he says, shit, I'm not going to drop it. And then he drops it. And then next thing you know, it's hot potato. Everybody's dropping it. So he goes back to DJ Moore on 4th down after he dropped it on 3rd down. That would have given them a 1st down. And Vikings come with pressure. Darnold throws it off his back foot, lays it up there beautifully. Moore wins one-on-one against the corner. Patrick Peterson had gotten hurt like 3 plays earlier. So they had a young corner in there, and they took advantage, and DJ Moore catches this one. And then finally, Robbie Anderson, who had 87 drops on the day, gets open in the back of the end zone, and Darnold finds him for the touchdown. And I'm like, wow, what a drive by Sam Darnold. 2 4th down clutch throws in the face of pressure. Finds Robbie Anderson, overcomes all the adversity. Still needs the 2-point conversion. And then they get in on the 2-point conversion. And I'm like, wow. This thing is tied at 28. But it's not over yet. Vikings still got 2 timeouts. Plenty of time. Kirk does what Kirk's been doing this year. Gets him in the field goal range, just like he did against Arizona. Just like he did against Cincinnati. You know, just like he did a couple of weeks ago in a walk-off win. Kirk gets him in the field goal range. And Greg Joseph, just like he did against Arizona, misses the damn field goal. So here we go to overtime. They win the toss, and Kirk's like, let me do this shit myself. I can't rely on this bastard to win anything. He's already let us down twice this year. Let me just go ahead and win this thing by myself. Throws a dime to KJ Osborne, who is playing phenomenal football. I remember saying before the season started, the Vikings don't have anybody after their 2 stud receivers, Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson. After those 2, cupboard's bare. It's bare. That's why the Irv Smith Jr. injury hurt so bad, because they got nothing. Well, now they have KJ Osborne, and he's been balling this year. They needed a 3rd guy. He stepped up and gave them that 3rd option that they've needed, that they've longed for. And now I think that offense is complete. When you got Dalvin Cook in there playing that way, they've got like 6 tight ends that they can get the football to. All of them very serviceable, including Chris Herndon, who they just traded for. They got Conklin, who I really like too, is a sneaky good pass catching threat. That's a complete offense with Dalvin Cook in the mix. Hell, they even gave it to Ham, their fullback, and he got off for like a 25-yard run or whatever. So that offense, man, it's dangerous. When they got everybody healthy and their weapons are all on deck, they can score with the best of them, which is why I said they're capable of beating anybody. They're also capable of losing to anybody. They won this one 34-28. Big win for them to get back to 500 after a really slow start to the season for the Vikings at 1-3. Here they are, back to 500. Let's look at their schedule. I'm curious about the Vikings. I know they got Dallas on a Sunday night coming up. As a matter of fact, they're on a bye week now. They come off the bye, and they got Dallas on Sunday night on Halloween at home. So that's a big one. That, to me, is a make-or-break game for them. They win that game, and they could go make a season of it. They lose that game, then you go on the road to the Ravens. You're going to lose that game the following week. Then you're on the road at the Chargers. You're probably going to lose that game as well. Then you're home for the Packers. You could conceivably lose 4 straight if you don't beat Dallas. However, if you beat Dallas, that would make it 2 straight, 3 straight if you beat Dallas. Now you're going into that stretch of games on the road, 3 straight on the road, 2 straight on the road, and then at home for the Packers with momentum. Riding a 3 games win streak, you might march into Baltimore. And I just said they could beat anybody. You might march into Baltimore and come out victorious. So that's a big one. You lose to Dallas coming off the bye at home on Sunday night. And I think this season could snowball. I told you I didn't think the Vikings were going to be good this year. So I'm expecting them to lose against Dallas and have the season snowball on them. But this is a critical stretch. If they can find their way through that stretch, it gets a lot easier. San Francisco, Detroit, the Steelers, the Bears, like the shit eases up. But this is a rough, brutal stretch right here. The kind that'll split your noodle if you're not careful. Big win for the Vikings, though. They're back to 3-3. The Panthers were a fraud. We knew that there was some fraudulent games early on, but I said, look, I'm not going to beat them up for doing what they needed to do, which is win. You can only beat who they put in front of you. But both the Broncos in the AFC and the Panthers in the NFC were the two teams that started 3-0 that had soft schedules with the Jets and the Jags and teams like that on it. And you said, in the Texans, and you said, hey, man, that's fool's gold right there. Let's see what you do when you get some real comp thrown in front of you. Both teams have lost 3 straight and are both 3-3 on the season. So that tells you all you needed to know about those two teams. The biggest surprise of the weekend is here in Baltimore. Chargers at Ravens. I knew that I knew the Ravens were going to win just off of this fact that the Chargers can't stop the run. And this is the problem when you can't stop the run. Lamar Jackson was not good in this game. 19 of 27, 167 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. He wasn't good. Guess what? He didn't have to be good. Why? Because they could run the football at will on the Chargers, because the Chargers can't stop anybody from running. 38 carries, 187 yards. Mind you, which averages out to right around 5 yards a pop. Mind you, 3 touchdowns too, I might add. Mind you, no player for the Ravens had more than 9 carries. Nobody had 10 carries. Okay. Freeman, 9 carries, 53 yards. Jackson, 8 carries, 51 yards. Tavius Murray, 9 carries, 44 yards. Le'Veon Bell, 8 carries, 18 yards. Devin Duvernay, 1 carry, 11 yards. And then they had their backup. I told you, it's nothing better than with 6 minutes left in the game, you're kicking ass, and you tell your backup, hey, go in there and go get him, kid. Go get him, Tiger. And Lamar Jackson's got a towel around his neck. He's got a cup of Gatorade in his hand. He finishes that. Now he's chewing on some sunflower seeds, spitting it in the cup. Nothing better than that. That's when you know, hey, we got in somebody's ass today. This ain't a preseason game. Looks like one. Tyler Huntley's in the game running on these boys. Looks like one. But that's what happens when you can't stop the run. Lamar Jackson wasn't good in this game. He wasn't the Lamar from Monday night against the Indianapolis Colts. He didn't have to be. Because these boys can't stop the run. And I keep talking about this. I don't care how good you are. If you can't stop the run, there's a ceiling as to how good you can be or how far you can go. Because at some point, you're going to have to stop the run or else you're going to lose. What I didn't foreshadow, though, what I couldn't have foreseen was Justin Herbert and this offense just being as abysmal as they were. First of all, Herbert can't be your leading rusher with 2 carries for 12 yards. That's problematic in itself. Herbert was not good in this game. 22 of 39 for 195. 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He could have easily thrown 3 interceptions in this game. Ravens dropped a couple of them. It just was a weird game because they never – it's almost like they were overwhelmed by the moment. It's almost like M&T Bank Stadium was unlike any home field advantage they'd ever dealt with this year. And I'm like, dude, you play road games every week. Even when you're home, you're on the road. But for whatever reason, they just seemed out of sorts, out of sync. And again, when you can't stop the run, it affects you. And I thought it really affected them in this game. They were never in this game. Never. Never felt like they were going to win this game. Never felt like they even had a shot at winning this game. This was a total ass thrash, a total domination. And if you're the Chargers, honestly, it's just one of those scrap it, move on. This is who they are. Like, this isn't going to change next week or the week after that. Unless they make some kind of a move at the trade deadline to fortify their defensive line and get stronger and stouter up front, there's nothing they can do. Like, this is who they are. So if that's the case, you just wipe this one from the memory banks, chalk it up to a bad game. You didn't have your fastball, and you move on. But this problem is going to creep up again if you play a team like Tennessee is in Baltimore. That's their kryptonite. Like, they gave up 42 points to the Browns last week. Why? Because they couldn't stop Nick Chubb. They couldn't stop Kareem Hunt. Like, if they see teams like that coming, they should run in the opposite direction. Because they can't stop those teams because they can't stop the run. Like, the Indianapolis Colts is a team that I really look at and I say they can beat the Chargers. Because they can run the football. So, they've got to fix this. I don't know if they can fix it until the offseason, though. We'll see if they try to get aggressive before the trade deadline and try to fortify their run defense. But for the Ravens, they got back to who they are. Last week against the Colts, they didn't rush for 100 yards in that game. Lamar Jackson literally took over the game as a passer. We saw the amount of passing attempts. I think he had like 47 passing attempts. I think he was like 41 or 47 or whatever it was last week. Some ridiculous number of completions, 86%, whatever it was. He took over as a passer last week. But they got back to their roots. This is what they want to do. They want to run the football. They want to dominate time of possession. Let's see what time of possession was in this game. It had to be one-sided. It was 38-22. So, I mean, yeah. I mean, that's what they want to do. They want to beat you up physically. That's going to lead to you being beaten up mentally because if you can't stop the run, it does something to your psyche. So, the Chargers, they look like a defeated team in this game after they realize this ain't Cleveland. Like, we're not going tit for tat here. This is a different defense we're playing in the Ravens. So, rough game for them. Big win for the Ravens. And all of a sudden, they go from like 3 straight weeks of barely getting by to a total ass thrashing that puts them on the map as a 5-1 team in the league. And nobody's really talking about the Ravens at 5-1 because they almost lost to the Lions and probably should have lost to the Lions. And they almost lost to the Colts and probably should have lost to the Colts. And almost lost to the Chiefs, probably should have lost to the Chiefs. But instead, here they are at 5-1. And even though the Bengals are keeping it competitive and interesting, I think they're the class of the AFC North division right now. We're going to find out. They play the Bengals next week at home. That's going to be a big one in the AFC North. Cardinals and Browns, I didn't see this coming. Even though the Browns were going to be without Nick Chubb, who I just think is one of the best running backs in football, they still had Kareem Hunt, so I'm like, they're still going to be able to run the football, still do the things that they want to do. But this Cardinals team, man, I tell you, when they go on the road and their mind is made up that they're going to play football, this is the second time that I looked at a team that they were playing that could run it, that could be physical against them, that I thought would really give them fits. This is the second time they went on the road and early on jumped on that team, smacked them around, and said, "You a bitch. I dare you. I double dog dare you to step to me." They did it to the Tennessee Titans in week 1 when in like the first half, maybe even the first quarter, I think he had 3 and then like 5 in the first half sacks by Chandler Jones. They harassed Ryan Tannehill, forced him to fumble, picked him off, did everything they wanted to do, beat the brakes off of the Titans in that game. And I remember calling them soft week 1 and that they were going to be emasculated in that game. And boy, was I wrong. And here I am thinking, okay, I called it the week of first. Yeah, the Cardinals are going to get their first loss this week. They don't have their head coach, Cliff Kingsbury, who was out with COVID-19 protocol. And I'm like, yeah, that's going to even add to the fact that they're not winning this week. You know, and man, they came out. They stopped Baker Mayfield on a 4th down. Sacked him on a 4th down, as a matter of fact. When the Browns could have elected to kick a field goal, they went aggressive and they blitzed Baker Mayfield and sacked him on 4th down. They forced a fumble of Baker Mayfield, did J.J. Watt. They picked him off, did the Arizona Cardinals. All of this, mind you, in the first, 20 minutes of the game. And you look up and it's 20-0. Just like that. And honestly, it should have been 28 or 31-0. Like, they're lucky they're only down 20-0 after that start. I mean, it got ugly quick. And even though the Browns rallied back, made it interesting at 23-14, that was all she wrote. They harassed Baker. They hurt him up, hurt him even further. Remember, there was a lot of discussion about him playing through a shoulder injury or whatever. Man, they slammed him down. J.J. Watt slammed him down pretty good on that same shoulder, his non-throwing shoulder. Yikes. Oh, it might actually be his throwing shoulder. I'm trying to think about how he fell. I think it was his non-throwing shoulder, whatever the case may be. The Arizona Cardinals, they're good. Kyler Murray, he's good. DeAndre Hopkins, he's good. Rondale Moore, he's good. Christian Kirk, he's good. AJ Green, he's good. And they're going to add Zach Ertz. Oh, my God. Arizona Cardinals, man. J.J. Watt, that didn't have a sack coming into this game, he's still good. Man, Kyler Murray, 20 of 30 for 229 and 4 touchdowns. James Conner, 16 carries, 71 yards. I love what Chase, the running back Chase brings to the table. It's just a good mix everywhere. They even got Rondale Moore in the backfield and used him as a back in this game. Like, they got really creative. They just got so many weapons that can hit you from so many different areas and from so many different directions. And now the defense isn't half bad. I don't know. They're not going undefeated. But man, are they good. You know who else is really good? Donovan Peoples-Jones. I didn't see this shit at Michigan. He's way better now than he ever was at Michigan. Like, he was highly touted, in terms of a recruit coming into Michigan. And there was so many expectations for him. And he never really lived up to them. And I'm thinking, he's all right. But I don't love him. This guy is making every single catch. But outside of that, this was a costly loss for the Browns. I mean, they already came into the game banged up with no Nick Chubb. Baker Mayfield hurts himself even more in this game. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who was playing out of his gourd as a rookie linebacker, he was everywhere in this game before he got hurt. He's now on IR with an injury. Kareem Hunt, who was supposed to carry the load until you could get Nick Chubb back, he's now hurting on IR. The Browns are hurting. The Browns are hurting big time. This is a costly loss. They're now 3-3 after a quick start to the season. They've now lost 2 in a row. They're reeling. And now they got a quick turnaround with all these injuries. Thursday night against the Denver Broncos. Somebody's got to stop the skid. The Broncos are on a 3-game losing streak. The Browns are on a 2-game losing streak. Both of these teams are 3-3. Somebody's going to get a win here. I don't know if the Browns are in any position to do it, but it'd be nice if Jarvis Landry came off of IR this week. I know they activated him, or at least he's off of the PUP list, I should say, eligible to rejoin the team at any moment now. They've got 21 days to activate him. It'd be nice if he joined the team on Thursday. That'd be a big boost for them. But, man, are the Browns struggling. Man, are the Cardinals good. I'm just going to say that. They got some really good contributions from the cornerback position. Like Robert Alford looks like a new man. He looks like the Robert Alford in Atlanta. They're playing good ball right now, are the Arizona Cardinals. That's for sure. Speaking of good ball, the Las Vegas Raiders did exactly what I told you they would do. It's the law of a brand new interim head coach. Every time, never fails. First time that coach steps on the field, he's going to get a win. Raiders do it in style against the Broncos, 34-24. Don't let the score fool you. This was a 31-10 game at one point. This was a one-sided beatdown. You know who's starting to emerge as that dude? Henry Ruggs III. I remember when he came out, I said he's the closest thing I've ever seen to Tyreek Hill. And then I said Waddle might be even better than him. Well, Waddle looks like a guy, and I think it's more so the Dolphins just being too conservative with him than anything else. But Ruggs, his biggest problem was health. If he stays healthy, he's a true deep threat. I haven't seen a guy that can run with him yet. He's constantly behind the defense, and he was behind the Broncos defense routinely in his football game. 3 catches, 97 yards, and a touchdown. He was huge in this game. Every time Derek Carr needed a big play, he knew who to dial up. Just get it to double sticks, and he'll get it done. And he did. For the Broncos, Teddy Bridgewater, man, I just don't know what it is about their offense and any team that, for that matter, quarterbacked by Teddy Bridgewater. But there's like a cap and a ceiling on how many points you can score with him at quarterback. 27 is that number. They scored 24 in this game. Teddy, 35 of 49 for 334, 3 touchdowns, but also 3 interceptions. I just don't know what it is. Like, for some reason. And honestly, like I said, this was 31 to 10 in the fourth quarter. Like, this was an ass thrashing that they made look competitive late, but this was never in doubt. You know, the Raiders were never – this was never a one-score game. After the Raiders jumped out on top 17-7, this thing never was close. So they get it done, and I'm anxious to see where the Raiders go from here. They get the win, but does that wear off next week? Let's see. I think they got the Eagles next. They do. Then the Giants, then the Chiefs, then the Bengals, then the Cowboys, then the Washington football team. They got every NFC East game in the next 6 weeks. They literally could win all 4 of those games. They could win 3 out of 4 of those games and not beat Dallas. They could win 2 out of 4 of those games. But if they win anything less than 2 out of 4 of those games in the NFC East, it'll be just like last year's Raiders team. Start off fast, have a chance, but fizzle out. They've got a chance to really build on the left-hand column with Eagles and the Giants the next 2 weeks. Then you get some toughies. You get the Chiefs and then the Bengals. Those are 2 teams playing well. But then you go back to the Cowboys and then Washington. If you can't win 3 out of 4 of those NFC East games, you don't deserve to go to the playoffs if you're the Raiders. So this is a big stretch for them. They got to find a way to take care of the Eagles, then the Giants, and then you need a split. You need to beat one or the other, the Bengals or the Chiefs. You would prefer to beat the Chiefs in your division, but you need to win one of those games, and then you need to beat either Dallas or Washington or both. We'll see what happens with the Raiders. They're interesting. They're an interesting team. Meanwhile, the Broncos, I said this about the Panthers. They were fraudulent. We knew that. We knew that there was a chance. I've been disappointed in the defense for the Broncos, though. This was a defense that was stifling teams. They had a shutout against the Jets earlier this season. They shut down the Jaguars. I just thought this was going to be a good defensive team, but they haven't gotten to the quarterback as well as I thought they would at this point. Their secondary, I thought, was going to be the strength of their team. That's been struggling. I don't know if they're missing Bradley Chubb or not, but they're struggling defensively, and that's the biggest shock to me in all of this is teams are finding it relatively easy to score on this Broncos football team, and I didn't think that would be the case. The Steelers, who couldn't score on anybody, scored 27 last week. The Raiders scored 34 this week. This was a team that wasn't giving up anything the first few weeks. Now they can't stop anybody from putting up points, it seems like. So this is going to be interesting. Browns, Broncos, 2-3-3 teams struggling. Started off the season hot, now have fizzled out. Somebody's going to win. Someone's going to eat. We'll see if the Broncos can turn it around on this quick, short turnaround and get it done on Thursday Night Football. Cowboys-Patriots was the game of the day on Sunday. 35-29 overtime victory for the Cowboys. They're now 5-1 on the season. Patriots are now 2-4. Dak Prescott was phenomenal. Every time the Cowboys needed a big throw, he made it, including a couple of big throws that nobody's really talking about, that they should be talking about. And those are the throws on that fourth quarter final drive that got him into field goal range. First of all, it was 4th and 15. And he and you know who else is balling? You know, CeeDee Lamb had a coming out party. He's balling this year. We thought he would if he stayed healthy. But Cedric Wilson, and I said this when they had the injury to Michael Gallup. I said they're going to get a glimpse of what life without Michael Gallup looks like. And if they can afford to let Michael Gallup walk. And since he's gotten injured, Cedric Wilson, who changed his number to 1, and he lost his damn mind when he changed his jersey number to 1. You know, when he was number 11 last year and the year before that, he was just Cedric Wilson. You know, Cedric. It's just Cedric Wilson. Now he's sad. He's catching every goddamn thing, making all kinds of plays, acrobatic plays. That 4th and 15, acrobatic sideline toe tap, go up and get it. 4th down grab to save the game. If that's incomplete, they lose. Are you kidding me? He was phenomenal. Made some big catches in the football game, did Cedric Wilson. He continues to be a big bright spot for the Dallas Cowboys offense, as if they needed any more firepower. And eventually they'll get Michael Gallup back, so it'll make them even stronger when he does come back. But CeeDee Lamb was phenomenal in this game. 9 catches, 149 yards, and 2 touchdowns, including the game winner in OT. He had the big catch. 3rd and 25. The Cowboys are out of field goal range at this point. And the Patriots play super soft. I thought they should have come after Dallas there. Come after Dallas, make Dak get rid of it. They had gotten pressure on Dak throughout the game. I thought that was the time to come after him, heat him up. Don't let him get time to sit back there and get it 35 yards down the field. He gets it, 20 yards down the field, and Lamb is tackled right at, I think 2 yards short of the sticks on 3rd and 25. But more importantly, it puts them in field goal range. And their kicker comes on the field, bangs it home, and gets them to overtime. The Cowboys, they don't win the toss. Patriots do. And they get the football, and I didn't like the decision on 3rd and 2 to go for the jugular. That's not who you are as an offense. They had a shallow cross underneath, I think it was the running back, or it might have been the tight end, was open for a 4-yard gain. Just get it to him, move the sticks. Instead, Mac Jones got greedy because on the last possession, he hits Kendrick Bourne on a 75-yard strike right after he'd thrown a pick 6 to give the Cowboys the lead. And I think he got greedy. That was an intoxicating completion. Now he's like, ooh, that felt good. I want more. No, bro, take the underneath check down, get the first down. Now you're at midfield. Now you're approaching scoring territory. Instead, he went for the jugular. He wasn't even close. They punt the football to Dallas, and that was all she wrote. They couldn't stop him. And, man, that Cowboys offense is a well-oiled machine, I tell you. Despite only scoring, only 35, they could have easily scored 35 in regulation if not for some penalties. The Patriots could have scored. They had a touchdown called back, negated by a penalty. Seems like the Cowboys have been saved multiple times by the opposition having penalties negate touchdowns going back to week 2 against the Chargers, where the Chargers scored 8 touchdowns and had them all nullified by penalty. The Cowboys took advantage of those opportunities, though. Trayvon Diggs, what can I say? What more can I say? He did it again. Another game, another INT, another pick 6 for Trayvon Diggs. It's just ridiculous now. He's becoming a weapon for this Cowboys defense. He got burnt on that touchdown pass on the very next play. But, this guy just continues to make big-time plays for that Cowboys defense week in and week out. Every game this season, he has had at least 1 interception. And against the Panthers, he had 2 in that game. He's got 7 INTs, and we've still got 11 games to go on the season. This guy is utterly ridiculous right now. So he's on a tear. He's continuing to play well for a revamped Dallas Cowboys defense that I thought was okay, not great. I thought that the Patriots really ran it down the Cowboys' throats. I was actually shocked at how well they ran it in this game. Both Harris and Ramondre Stevenson both had some good hits in the run game. I thought the Patriots really were balanced offensively. Shocked that they were able to have some of the success, because I've been talking about this Patriots offense being stale and unimaginative and just an offense that struggles to put up points. And here they are scoring 29. But the Cowboys, when they had to have it, and that's why you need one of those types of quarterbacks. When they had to have it, when the game was on the line, the most pressure-packed moments, Dak Prescott stepped up every single time, got it done, and that's why they're 5-1. Big win for the Dallas Cowboys in this game. Tough, bitter pill to swallow if you're the New England Patriots. You should be 4-2 right now. You should have won this game. You should have beaten the Miami Dolphins in week 1. You should be 4-2 right now. This is a well-coached Patriots team. But they don't have room for error. They don't have a margin of error that's great. And so when you throw a pick six, when your running back fumbles at the very end of the game, when you got a chance to assault the clock away and kick a walk-off field goal, that's why you're 2-4 instead of 4-2. Big win for Dallas. They're 5-1, and they're now 3 games clear of the next team in the NFC East. So that's your Sunday slate of games. Don't need to go over Sunday night nor Monday night. We've done that already on the overtime programs. So that's going to take us to our final segment and garbage time. And I just want to talk quickly about where we are as a whole in the NFL right now after 6 weeks. 14 teams right now in the NFL are between 2-4 3-3 and 2-4. 14. Okay, that's what you call the middle class. It's jam-packed, full of teams that we still really don't know what they are this season. You know, whether they're gonna go or 3 wins and 2 wins, I should say, because the Saints are 3-2. They had a bye week. You know, and then 2-4. So between 3-2, and really, I don't want to count the Saints. 3-3. Between 3-3 and 2-4. Teams at 500 or below 500, but you know, at 2-4. That's the middle class of the NFL right now. 14 teams. You have the 5%ers that are, and it's 11 of those, so it's more than 5%, right? But you got the 5%ers, the upper class. 11 teams that are either ranging from 6-0 with the Arizona Cardinals to 4-2 to teams like Cincinnati and the Chargers, teams like that are 4-2 right now. I think those are the teams that are 4-2. And then you've got the middle class, as I just mentioned, the 3-3 teams like Cleveland and Denver and Minnesota and Carolina. These teams that we're not sure about. We don't really know what they are. You know, Vegas is 4-2. They're a part of the Habs right now, but we don't know about them either, right? Chiefs are 3-3. They're a part of the middle class right now. And then you have the lower class, the destitute teams, the teams that need, you know, public assistance and government assistance. They're the 1-win and no-win teams. The Jacksonvilles, the Giants, the Lions, the Jets, those types of teams that are struggling right now. To say the least. There are 7 of those teams right now. They're at the bottom. They may have company here shortly because some of those 2-win teams are on their way down, not on their way up. So as we continue to get deeper and deeper into the season, the middle class will shrink even further. So will the haves. That will shrink a bit. Some of those teams will come down to the middle class. But some of the middle class will drop down to the lower, you know, destitute teams. And I just find it interesting right now, as we sit here in week 7 now, that there are so many teams, and this is what it is every year. It's so many teams, but we still really don't know who's going to ascend. And with that 17th game, it gives you even more time to figure it out. So I'm interested. What's going to become of Cleveland? What's going to become of Denver? What's going to become of Minnesota? I just told you about their stretch of games coming up. What about Carolina? Can they turn it around, or are they dead now? You know, what's going to happen with Washington at 2-4? The Eagles at 2-4. Can they turn it around? Their schedule really starts to lighten up here shortly. If they can win a game or two, the Eagles could really, you know, turn it around if they can figure out some things, because their schedule gets considerably easier. You know, you look at some other teams, you know, that are like New England, 2-4, but they could easily be 4-2. Can they turn it around? What about Atlanta? They're 2-3 right now, coming off of a bye week. I don't think they're any good, but they could be 3-2 if they just beat Washington at home. They're 3-2 right now, winners of 3 straight. instead of 2 and 3. So who knows what the Saints are? They're about to get a bunch of guys back off of injury, sitting there at 3 and 2. They're going to get their left tackle and their center back. They're going to get Michael Thomas back off the PUP list here shortly. They're going to get Traquan Smith, one of their receivers, top receivers, off of that IR here shortly. They're going to get their edge rusher Marcus Davenport back. I mean, they were the walking wounded, and yet they sit here at 3 and 2, and they're going to get a bunch of reinforcements here in a bit. It's just interesting to see how this thing shapes up, because it could go in so many different directions. We know this is a week-to-week league, and momentum is a fleeting thing. Sometimes confidence is a fleeting thing. Momentum can be fleeting, but it could also be game-changing. And it could lead to a team getting on a win streak of, 3-4 games. And next thing you know, they were 2 and 4. And now, all of a sudden they're 6 and 4, or at one point they were 2 and 6 and you left them for dead. And now they're 6 and 6 fighting in the mix. I think it's going to be interesting. These next few weeks are going to be big for some of these teams, especially in the middle class. Those upper tier teams, for the most part, the Cardinals, the Rams, the Packers, the Ravens, we know who they are. They're not going anywhere. We know Tampa Bay. We know who those teams are. They're not going to just fall off of a cliff. But for, the Raiders, the Chargers, some of these teams where you're like, not sure about you yet. Not too sure about you yet. It'll be interesting to see what some of those teams do. Because there are a number of those teams that exist as well. Dallas is 5-1. I'm not sure about Dallas yet. Not sure. They got some games coming up here. Minnesota, I think that's a tough game there. On the road on a Sunday night. The Chiefs are coming up here shortly. So are the Raiders. They've got some games coming up that are going to be interesting to see how they continue to navigate. And if they continue to win, okay, yeah, all right, they're that team this year. But we'll see. I just think things are getting really, really interesting. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the 214th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I thank you guys for joining me. If you enjoy this content, please do me a huge favor and hit the subscribe button for more great content. Turn on your notification bell so you don't miss a thing, and also hit the like button, as it doesn't cost you a thing, but it certainly helps this channel grow exponentially. Over 80 of you out there, only 42 likes. We can do better than that. Let's get it up to 50. Wasn't a ton of you out there tonight, and I appreciate all of you who on a busy night sports wise. You got MLB playoffs, you got the NBA's first night, they're back in business. It's a lot of things to do. I get it. And you still decided to come and chop it up with the kids. So I really do appreciate you guys for that. But that's going to do it for me. I'll allow you to get back to whatever it was you were doing before I rudely interrupted your evening. Look forward to chopping it up with you again tomorrow. Yeah, that's pretty much it. You guys go ahead, get out of here. I really appreciate you. Get off the bench, get in the game, and kick it with me, your man Louie T. Until next time, God bless. Good night.
Louie.